Chris Harrison is a television and game show host, best known for his role as the host of the ABC reality TV dating show, The Bachelor. He also hosted its many spin-offs, The Bachelorette, Bachelor Pad, and more. In 2021, Chris announced that he will be temporarily stepping aside from the franchise. Since then, Chris got engaged to his fiancée, Lauren Zima, and now hosts his own iHeartRadio podcast, the most dramatic podcast ever. This is Just Be with Chris Harrison. Let's get into it.
Hi, Bethenny.
How are you?
Good.
I don't know that have we ever met in person?
We never have, which is bizarre.
I know. I don't know. When I read your bio, it says you're best known for your role on The Bachelor and Bachelorette and the spinoffs, but I don't know how you got started. I don't know what your trajectory was to get to that.
I was a sportscaster. I played soccer in college, and then from college got into sportscasting / news and all that stuff in Oklahoma City, just the local CBS affiliate, and then went on to start a horse racing network in LA, and then did game shows and home and garden show, and then Bachelor.
Oh, okay. So you're very passionate about sports, or that was just the hook you had to get in?
No, I was passionate about playing it. It was funny. I always loved playing it more than I did covering it, but it was kind of this natural transition when I was in college and just fell in love with TV.
And you've never thought about getting back into the sports world in the professional space?
I did. I thought about it, but honestly, the hours suck. It's like today I'm leaving and flying out to go see the US Open golf tournament. And instead I would have been working it. So I went to the Super Bowl and I went to all those things, but I was alone sitting there on press row going, oh, remind yourself to have fun because you're sitting here alone when everybody's home having parties.
Right.
But you and I have very similar trajectories.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how long have you been engaged?
Gosh, good question.
And who cares, right? Who cares?
Not that it's not meaningful. About a year.
Okay.
Or so.
Did you find that in the beginning people are asking you and now no one really cares what you do? Like they're asking you when you're getting married and are you planning wedding?
Yeah, now it goes to when you're getting married, what you're planning, where is it going to be and all that good stuff. Oh,
they're still there with us. They don't even care.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what's your answer?
We're getting married soon. We actually have a wedding planned.
So no, we're not in the same boat because we're in the same boat that we're both engaged. But
yes.
I have the question all the time, and I don't really have a great reason why we're not planning a wedding. I think the best reason is just that I don't want to. I don't want. We are. It feels cheesy. We feels like we're married.
Yeah.
We are life partners, which I think people think is a weird thing to say. Just using that sort of formal terminology. It's very modern terminology, but. I hate that when the question gets asked, it's a good sort of talk show question. And I'm just I don't know.
That's funny. That's why I got engaged because I was like, I can't call you my girlfriend.
Yes.
And you're more than that because we live together. We have this life together. And so I'm not cool enough or whatever to say life partner. I don't even know what that means. So right. I'm like, okay, this is the next step. Let's get engaged.
Right. No. And fiance is weird too. Isn't it now for you?
It is. Yeah. Now that's silly.
It's almost more stupid because it's younger. It sounds like you're 23.
It does. It does make me feel that way.
You would know. Oh my God.
100%.
You would know more than anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's and I was married previously. And so, I was young, I was in my 20s. And so it felt natural. And so when I say, oh, she's my fiance, it makes me feel like I'm in college again, or I just got engaged. Yeah. And so it is this weird kind of purgatory where we're not here, we're not there yet. So I'm like, okay, now it's time to and that's how I always felt about all my relationships is when it doesn't feel right anymore and you feel like, okay, I'm lying to everybody. It's time. Let's go public. Okay. I'm tired of calling you my girlfriend. Let's get engaged. I don't want to call you so that when you get that feeling, it's time to move on.
Yeah. And not to bring up a sensitive word, but will you have a bachelor party or no way?
It's funny. No, but yes. I don't want to have a bachelor party by any means. Again, talk about something I did when I was 23. But I will probably grab some of my dearest friends and we'll go play golf or something. Just
you want to make meaning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Be with people I love and we'll call it a bachelor party. But yeah, we're not going out. We're not going to a strip club. We're not doing any of this stupid stuff that I didn't even love when I was 23.
Right. Yeah.
What about you?
It's funny because I don't know. I think you're younger than I am. But do you mind if I ask?
I'm 51.
Oh, so you're a year younger. So we are very similar. Wow.
That's what's weird. The more I talk about, I can't believe we haven't met
I know.
And because we have very parallel lives on so many levels, it's really bizarre.
I know. And
you're the East Coast version.
I'm the East Coast version. You took a really sort of like traditional work entertainment path. Like
Very
you got
much.
in, you know what I mean? And I'm like rogue in that way. So it's a parallel, different circuitous path. But funny to think about the fact that both, I wouldn't have thought of yours as risky and scary. However, thinking about you being partners with such a big network that, owns Disney owns ABC, right? Or ABC owns
100%.
Disney owns, right?
Yeah, Disney
so like
owns ABC.
I know from Eric Stone Street on Modern Family, like he's still sort of trained to not say certain things, to not be a certain way. He can't believe the things that I say when he can say them too. He's not on the show anymore. But people who live in that world have to adhere to such a code.
Oh, for sure.
So
you definitely got to stay between these little navigational beacons for sure.
Yes. And, find your little ways of like blinking twice to say something that might be almost inappropriate, but not quite. Like being on a morning talk show. When you're, when I'm on the Today Show, I'll like say things that are sort of winking to the audience, but you can't really say what I would normally say. And so I wouldn't have thought that your path would be scary. I think that my path is sometimes scary because I, borderline really getting in trouble for being opinionated. So I wonder, do you feel free now in your career? Like you could kind of do or say anything you want now, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you bring up a good point. Like there was safety in my job for so long because my job kept me in that little space. And so as long as I stayed in that little space and I didn't speak out on politics or anything, which by the way, I never did anyway. I never brought it into the show because I felt like that's what people were getting away from when they wanted to come to me in my show. It's like, they're not, if you want that, go elsewhere. You come here to escape and get away from it all. So my brand was never being this outspoken proponent of anything. Whereas your brand kind of was. You were known as this brash, really outspoken, speak, and kind of shoot from the hip. And so, yeah, I could see how your life would be a little bit scarier from day to day as opposed to my thing was kind of lined up for me. Your original question of, do you feel more free? 100%. Doing this, having my own brand, my own name, my own title. I'm not, and also there's safety in having quote unquote been canceled. It's kind of like being pregnant. It's kind of like being pregnant. It's like, can I get pregnant again? So
right.
There's safety.
Double jeopardy.
There's safety in that. So, and I think people that love me and supported me, they're with me anyway. So, and the people that don't be with me. Don't listen, don't watch.
Well,
but I feel a lot more free to speak my mind and be a little bit more honest.
I'm Carol Fisher, and I'm hosting a podcast called The Girlfriends. It's Las Vegas, it's the 1990s, and it is time to find a husband.
There were 4 Jewish doctors who were felt to be eligible bachelors. One of them was Bob Berenbaum.
On paper, he was perfect, but in reality,
this guy's a wacko.
He choked her to the point she went unconscious.
I would call him and I would say, I know you killed my sister.
You can listen to The Girlfriends on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is a prepaid debit call from
Keith,
an inmate at the Ohio State Penitentiary.
Keith Lamar, convicted and sentenced to death for killing 5 men during one of the longest and deadliest prison riots in U.S. history.
He said he didn't do it. And, oh my God, I don't think he did do it.
It's hard to believe that 22,000 pieces of evidence are actually inadmissible.
Did the prosecution depend heavily on the use of inmate testimony? That's a huge red flag.
Keith's life is not disposable just because you got it wrong, just because you needed somebody to blame.
These people talking about tying me to a gurney and pumping poison in my veins. I have to expose these people. I mean, I know we're doing a podcast. This is my life.
Listen to The Real Killer on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Honey German.
And I'm Carolina Bermudez, and your favorite podcast, Life in Spanglish, is back for another season.
Join us as we dive into the vibrant and dynamic world of Life in Spanglish.
Get ready to laugh, cry, and experience a range of emotions as we tackle important issues such as identity, la familia, amor, y más.
And this is not your abuelita's podcast. We give you the real and raw advice on sex, love, dating, carreras, and just about everything in between.
So you can expect a heavy dose of sazon with each episode, with stories you don't want to miss.
And you already know we touch on the chisme out in Hollywood too.
And we never miss an opportunity to talk about the celebridades that are making headlines across the culture.
We will even take you into our salon, and here there is never a line.
Take a seat and get ready as we dish out some hard truths to listener questions that sometimes can go a bit local. Listen to Life in Spanglish as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What about something being part of your DNA and not even realizing it? Like walking away, leaving the housewives for me, albeit by choice. I kept thinking about even it was like an ex that I was not in love with, but I was still thinking about them. Like, are they calling? Do I call them? What are they doing? Like, what are they up to? Like, I was still I thought that was the only world. I thought that everybody knew what the housewives were. And I know in the stratosphere they do, like in the ether, but I thought that everybody was like talking about, what an Orange County housewife is doing, and they weren't, because it was just something I was connected to. So I checked back in, and then one day, just like an ex, it just dissolves and it's off of you and it's not part of you. It's just somebody that you used to know.
It is cathartic.
What about that with you?
It is very cathartic, and you're right. It is very much is a relationship and a breakup. And mine was kind of the same way, where it was, the best I could say is it was mutual. It definitely wasn't against me. Like, I wasn't fired, but I didn't exactly quit. It was kind of this mutual thing, agreement, if you will. But when you've been a part of something for 20 years and you are so synonymous with it, like you were you really put Housewives on the map and became synonymous with it. And I was the same way. You think of Bachelor, you think of Chris Harrison. And so I prided myself in that, and I tried to never be known as that personally. Like, I didn't want to identify as that, but you almost can't help it because that's what you do. When I was doing,
I know, like in some world, you're, winning Academy Awards for real films. Like, you're Jim Carrey trying to get out of comedy, being a real actor, meaning, that
never bothered me. Like, I was never the guy that was like, oh, please don't just know me as this guy.
Oh,
the Bachelor
okay.
guy. No, I'm totally cool with that. Believe me, I'll hand out roses till the day I die. I know where my bread was buttered, and I totally respected that. And to this day, it's funny because I'm still synonymous with the show. People either still assume I'm on the show, or they just ask me about it and whatever.
I get it.
And I'm so grateful for it. It changed my life, and I'll never be mad about that. No, I just meant, like, personally, it didn't identify, like, I have a different life, and I live my own life as far as my relationships and my friends, and that goes. But when you leave a show, it's still very much a part of you. And there was a bit of like you said, that breakup is interesting because it is like, I could have done it for another 5 or 10 years. Was I still in love with her? No, it wasn't the same.
But you didn't even know you were in a relationship.
Yeah.
And now you're like still thinking about who are they sleeping with? Even
though
you're
going through the motions,
yeah,
right?
But I'm saying, it's
relationship.
ABC and it's people they're casting in your position. You're looking at how they're doing well. Are they it's like are they happy? Who are they sleeping with? Is it working? Like, you know what I mean?
Did you take any sort of solace or happiness out of the fact that Housewives dips after Bethenny Frankel leaves?
Well, yeah, big time. I'll tell you 2 things. One, because you may go back one day. I read, you've talked about it, and you never know, and I could see it happening. Time heals all wounds. The ratings went from 3 million to 1.6, I think it was. That was a big, and then I came back, and they went back up, and I felt, wow. And you do think about the fear-based culture and how people don't play the long game. There are a lot of business lessons to be learned. It's not that easy to work with big networks as you've done because they're just always playing scared. They have to.
Right. They're not smart business people making really smart business decisions. And you're an amazing businesswoman considering everything that you've done subsequently from the Housewives. And when people don't think like that, it's really hard to work with them. When they're not making even common sense choices that will benefit everybody, that will lead to success, it's hard to work in that space.
Well, also you're working, so by doing what you were doing, you're working in a corporate environment, no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter that you're a creative or entertainer. You're in a corporate environment. So I just launched a YouTube series, but like a real produced 20-minute. It's a television show. It's just YouTube is the network.
Yeah.
And I never understood how I could participate there in that way, because I could carry a show, and it's so liberating to do like a content to the people model like you're doing on your podcast now. You don't have to go ask the hall monitor for permission, 5 suits tell you it's a good idea, it's a bad idea. We're waiting for legal to let us know if you're in or you're out or whatever.
Right.
Next season, pick up. It's kind of at a certain level after working for so many years, you kind of feel powerless. Like it's not your choice. And I feel that there's something nice about this modern time in a career for someone like you or myself that is like freedom. Like you could go say whatever you want right today and make it entertainment and people will listen.
The paradigm has shifted completely. It's really done a 180. I when you and I got in this business, again, we're about the same age and kind of entered it around the same time. There was this dynamic of, does Bethenny Frankel represent our brand? Is it okay that we have her? Well, now that paradigm's completely done a 180. Do the people you work for represent you?
Oh, yeah. Howard Stern is a rare occurrence of pushing through the man. He's a rare occurrence back then.
He was really the first of the breed. He was way ahead of his time.
Yeah,
I mean, he is a genius on so many levels. Not only one of the best interviewers of our time, but you're right. He was kind of the first to show us we should have looked at that model 20 years ago.
Yeah, push through. I'm going to say what I want. Yeah, it's because they're saying, I relate to that because, not everyone likes me. And that's okay. They want to, even if they don't like me, the sort of research says they want to hear what I have to say. They love to hate me. So it's not, if they hate to hate me, we're in trouble. They they love to love me, or they love to hate me, but they don't hate to hate me.
You know what kills? Apathy. I always say when it was The Bachelor or Bachelorette, people would say, why was this person good at this? And I said, look, I don't care if you hate this person. I don't care if you love this person. As long as you have a real strong feeling one way or the other. What will kill me and kill the show is if you say, I don't care.
Or blah. Fast forward.
Like Bethenny, I don't really have an opinion. I don't care.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Love you or hate you, I want to hear what you're saying. That matters. And someone who moves the needle is what matters. And
interesting. So the way that this podcast today happened was you were on the phone with Amy, the producer for you. She produces yours too, or no?
Yes, she does. Yes, I'm with iHeart as well.
So she was like, I'm on the other phone with Chris Harrison. And I said, I didn't say, I don't think I said you hated me because I don't think that you do. I don't think you care. I mean, respectfully. But I said, no, tell him you're on the other phone with me because he said a nasty thing about me in an article. And correct me if I'm wrong. I was single because you're doing what you do. Someone said, would you ever date Bethenny? And you're like, I don't like her. I don't like the way she treated her father or spoke about her father. And now I heard you just say, I didn't even know that you did a horse racing show. So for everyone listening, my father was a Hall of Fame horse trainer, one of the greatest horse trainers of all time. And I was thinking, I didn't know that you even knew him, and you must have known him like through the business, but you weren't his best friend. I mean, you weren't like Joe Torre, who's his best friend, I think.
Right.
And so I read that and was like, what the fuck?
So I got asked, this is back when I was single, and I don't remember the article or whatever, but you had said something about your dad or something like that. So this is the weirdest story. That
I think I had said something. It might have been on the show because I talked about it, or it might have been even earlier on the Today Show when I said I don't, because it was Father's Day coming up, and I said I don't really have a father because I really didn't.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. So I knew your dad. It's funny. So I knew your dad. I didn't know much about you, and honestly, when you came to be, I had known your dad much better than I didn't. It took me a while before I even realized you two were connected.
But doesn't that say a lot to you?
Yeah, it does. No, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I wasn't best friends with your dad, but one of his very best friends was another trainer / horse person. This guy, Frank Lyons, this Irish guy.
Frank.
Okay, so Frankie was a very dear friend of mine. We worked together and did a show together. So
I know that show. Yes, that was his show. I figured, okay.
So anytime we went to New York, to Belmont, to cover the Belmont, anything, Saratoga, we went and had dinner with your dad. And went and hung out. And so I hung out with your dad many times, got to know him pretty well, to the point where, we would see each other and give each other a hug and say hello. But you're right. What made me think later was, how did I not know anything about Bethenny? And I knew her dad fairly well. And I'm probably the only person in this world that knew your dad and worked with him on that world.
Yeah.
It was, it was very horse centric. So obviously I was there at the races. We were talking about the races and all that, but we would go out and, have a great steak in New York, as your dad loved to do. But it was funny, but I never really knew. And I've read subsequently that you had a very strained relationship. So no, I really don't know what that relationship was like.
I just had to bring it up because that's how it started, and I don't hold it against you. We did not have. I didn't see him from the time I was 5 to 14, and he literally said, "I'm washing my hands" with the whole situation about me, and then really, he just never was interested in being my father, and I think it's because. How could I know what he thought? What I think? You're now being a parent. I can't even imagine it. He was a very horse centric person. He was selfish. I mean, he just really only thought about what was going on with him and with the horses. And so it makes sense. People around him who he met, he liked young girls and he was fun. And he'd go out and tell the jokes and he knows the best steak and all this stuff. And we're talking about horses, but he couldn't really relate to other people that weren't in the horse community. And I was not, So anyway, and my stepfather was a horse trainer too. I don't know if you know.
No.
John Paracella.
You've heard
of John
crazy.
Paracella, right?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah. So that was my stepfather. So I grew up at the racetrack. My aunt, everyone. So I never ever go, and I don't have a connection to it. But anyway, I don't know why we talked about that for half an hour.
No, but it is interesting because knowing, and this is a weird relationship to have with you since we had never met, is I spent those nights with your dad and days as well. But I never really thought until later about the family dynamic because we were in those nights where we're out in Manhattan or we're doing whatever. And it wasn't really the time to have kids around or to have.
I know.
And so, I never thought much of it because in those nights, we're just drinking wine, having a steak or whatever. So I didn't think, hey, where's your daughter? Or, and it wasn't weird that he wasn't.
I understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean? It wasn't weird that he wasn't talking about you in those moments. And it would have been weird if I had said, well, tell me about your family. We were just shooting the shit and having a great time.
I understand. I get the whole thing.
And it wasn't until later when you came to prominence and I put this connection together. I'm like, wait, oh my God, that's Bobby Frankel's daughter. What a weird way to get to know Bethenny Frankel because everyone knew you so differently than how I was getting to know you.
Totally.
Different lens altogether.
And I had a whole life on the racetrack, obviously, as a kid, going to Saratoga. I didn't go to camp. I was going to the betting windows at 5. I was going to Vegas for 3 weeks in a row.
The backside of a horse track is a very interesting place to grow up.
I grew up there, and I was a hot walker.
No way. So obviously the person who kind of walks the horses and gets them out and goes in the circle. And that is crazy.
Cools them down. That's why people don't know the expression ridden hard and put away wet about a woman. Yes. It's because it's a horse that hasn't been cooled down after their work.
How weird that we have this connection. When was the last time you talked horse racing with anybody?
Never. Bobby Flay a little, but really it's very little. Dave Portnoy, very minimally. Also, I think of someone like Dave Portnoy as not an imposter, but a late. I was eating pizza at the Spumoni Garden before he was born. He's talking about horse racing because he came in. I grew up at the racetrack, literally hanging out with the jockeys and the jockeys' agents and walking horses. And so it's I feel like I'm part of that club. And if I ever go back, it's
well, tell me this. And this is a weird question to ask somebody now that your dad is gone. I have fond memories of him. Is that a bad thing?
No. I have fond memories of his charm and his his sparkle and his charm and frankly, and we think about genetics in being the best at I don't say it, so I don't know why I'm saying people don't believe me, but when I say this next sentence out loud, people would be like, "What? I didn't know that." He was probably top 10 in history at that sport.
He is a legend, an absolute Hall of Fame legend in the sport.
Yeah, but no one knows that because I never talk. And every time there's an article and they say to me, tell us something we don't know about you, I never say that. I don't know why I never think about that my father's a Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame.
No, he's like a Bill Belichick of coaches / trainers. I mean, that's what these people do. So he's won the biggest races. He was worth, he won millions and millions and millions of dollars.
He did, but how weird is this? So first of all, there's something connected with me and him just genetically and winning. Like I was raised like nobody cares who came second in Derby by a nose. It doesn't matter. Like you're never going to hear that name. So who gives a shit? So I'm like a winner. Like I'm going to win or I'm not doing it. Like
it's finishing second at the Olympics.
Period. Like we could sleep or we could do it, but I don't want to do the middle. So I like winning or not participating. Those are my two options. So I see that from there. And then I had a lot of money noise growing up because I like never knew where with my stepfather, we would have 6 cars in the driveway and then we would only have a card table and he'd be borrowing money for me to pay off a bookie. Like it was very high-low, very degenerate racetrack lifestyle I grew up with. So I never felt safe with money and he didn't really help me that much. He just didn't really help me. He kind of wanted to keep me down. And like I'd go to the Derby and he would be bragging to a bunch of people about all these tickets he has and he should sell them. And I'd be begging friends or people to get in. Like he never wanted me to. Yes, he didn't help me in that way. He just had this thing with me. It was weird. So I ended up making more money than him. And I know that sounds ridiculous and I never think about it, but I'm thinking about it now. And I know, because I know when he died, he left me.
Well, is it safe to say you got because I do see attributes. And again, this is weird because I knew your dad. I see these attributes in you of you are a badass. Like you know, I dare somebody to tell Bethenny Frankel, you can't do this or no. And so, yeah, this drive, but do you think you maybe took that as hopefully the next generation does and you bettered it? You're a better person in the way you apply these things.
Absolutely. And also that now that I never think about this, but he was entirely unfiltered. Think about it. He would say anything to anyone and he didn't care. He didn't have
to. That's why he was such a good interview.
Right. Do you want to go to dinner? No. Like, that's how I am. Like, we don't need to get into like lube and like foreplay and like after cigarettes. Like, no, like he would just say, I don't want to go. That's me. If I don't want to do something, I'll just say I don't want to do it. I don't go like, oh, I have a thing with I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I want to do that. Why?
Your dad was a tough interview like that too. If you asked a stupid question, he'd be like, that was a dumbass question. Yeah, he wouldn't say dumbass, but he would say that he would let you know, and you're like, damn, he's New York. It's like it's that New York like rub
and then
for
some.
sure.
But yeah. So anyway, he was very successful. That interview that happened that was on the Today Show, it's a lesson. By the way, you have gone through this. This is a good full circle thing we can do. I was doing a Father's Day episode, and it was kind of relevant because it didn't really apply to me. I wasn't about to celebrate Father's Day. Like, let's not bullshit. He would never call me, and he'd barely call me on my birthday. He didn't call. So I added that piece of information on the Today Show during the Father's Day segment, but not everything needs to be said, as I'm sure you've learned. Like, it's true. It's a fact. He wasn't a great father, and I didn't really have a father, but it did not need to be said. So when I say that to you, I'm curious, because we're living in the world of like, be honest and be upfront and use your voice and say something. But at what cost? You can't make a mistake then. You said something in the moment, within a corporate infrastructure, and it might have been different if you said it now on your podcast, because not everything needs to be said, and things should be said differently in different places, by the way. One
of my least favorite sentences in the world is your silence is deafening. That drives me nuts. Because people kind of want to set you up to fail, right? It's like, say something. You didn't say it right. It's just like, you're never going to, and you know this, you're never going to please everybody. And if you go around trying to please everybody, all you're going to do is fail everybody. Like there was a thing with you the other day. I don't know if it was the other day, but recently you spoke out against, you were critical of the Housewives, of the franchise or whatever. And your quote was, something about like, yeah, look, I loved it. I was a part of it, but I can also be critical of it. I can be honest about it.
Right.
And I loved that.
Yeah. It's so funny because I'm not allowed to speak on it or have a podcast that breaks it down because I left and have said negative things about it. Who said? What do you mean? You can't talk about you might have hated your college. You can't talk about it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And two things and this is the toughest thing about speaking out, is two things, and actually many things can be true at the same time. I can love my time on The Bachelor. I can love that franchise. I can understand how it changed television. Same thing with Housewives. I can also be very critical of it and understand it was problematic in many ways. And there were things that I would love to have changed that I couldn't or whatever. And same thing with you and Housewives. So all those things can be true at the same time.
Exactly.
So how can I just make one blanket statement and encapsulate all that? You can't.
No. And how can you make one mistake? And it's like why was it such a big deal? Like, why can't someone make a mistake? People have made way worse mistakes. And B, was it the environment you were in? If you made the mistake on your podcast, would it be as big of a deal? And what would you change? Like, write the script differently. You say the same thing, but like, what happens? How do you handle it? Because this is helpful for people who get into trouble at work, say something stupid at a wedding, just fuck up in general. Like, we're allowed to we should be allowed to fuck up.
Well, nobody should be defined by one moment in their life, in my opinion, and definitely not defined by one vulnerable, low, or disappointing moment. I was a firm believer when I went through what I went through, that the foundation I've laid my entire life, the man I am, the dad I am, the friend I am, the host I was, the employee, all that foundation that I worked on for 3 decades almost would be the decider. The best thing I could have done if I had it to do over, which was control my own narrative. The traditional going on Good Morning America couldn't have been a bigger mistake. I would urge anybody, if you have something real to say, do not go on Good Morning America ever. If you want to do a fluff piece, if you want to promote something, great. But if you honestly have something serious to say, don't let somebody like Good Morning America control your narrative, control the message. So that I would have changed, where I would have gone on social media, gone on YouTube, gone on Instagram, and just spoken to you just like this. It's also the other two things, this 2-pronged thing of controlling my own message. I would have spoken. The other thing is leadership. When you do work for somebody, you are kind of under their thumb, right? You need some leadership. If someone of leadership, someone in a position of strength will fill that void. When those two girls are chirping, right? And they just keep chirping and chirping and churning things out. The only people that can stamp that and stop that message is someone in a power position, someone of leadership. If someone of leadership says, hey, Chris Harrison's been with us for 20 years. He's a good man. We know this. Do we agree with what he said? No, look, we don't agree with it by any means or whatever, but that's his own words. But we know this man to be an amazing guy who will stand up for anybody and jump in front of a bus. He is our guy. We're moving on, period.
But that's why you have your own platform, because it's frightening to be.
But if people of leadership won't do that, they just leave you kind of hung out to dry, right? And so if no one fills that void, it allows this vacuum, and it allows everybody to just keep talking and printing articles, and the wildfire continues. And all they had to do was just boom, done. We're moving on.
Right. But the message for people who you can't be a wizard and know what the powers that be are going to do to protect you. So you have to find ways to protect yourself, is what the advice that I would give. You have to find ways to protect yourself. Because like you, so I was on Bravo and I was lost at sea for like 21 to 24 hours with thank God I didn't bring my baby with me in Nantucket to Block Island. It sounded like a crazy story. It sounded like a made-for-reality TV story. The entire crew was not shooting anymore. They were seasick. It was crazy. And everyone was saying it was a made-up story. It was a fake story. And no one corrected it at Bravo. Like, I went on with Matt Lauer in the morning and, like, had to sort of try to defend myself like you on Good Morning America. But it really was, like, for naught. And who cares now? But it felt like a thing that I had to go defend when it really happened. And it would have been great if they were just like, this is preposterous. It absolutely happened. Yeah. They were like, we don't get in the position of defending people or commenting on stories. I'm like, you got to comment. It happened.
Well, that's the thing. And you're right. They're like, oh, we don't comment. Because you go back to something you said earlier in the show. They play scared. They live scared. They are, the executives and many companies and networks are just the same. They try to get through the day without making a decision. And if they do have to make a decision, don't be culpable for that decision. And so they were trying to just, let's see which way the wind blows.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, when you're the human being that's in it, that's great, because Disney's not going anywhere. ABC's not going anywhere, but I will.
You're replaceable. Yeah.
And so if you try to be loyal to these people and you try to play the game, because I'm an unbelievably loyal person to a fault, and I tried to just please everybody and apologize and keep doing what they were asking. Well, if they're not going to do their part and step up, that leaves you in the lurch. And that leaves you in a very dangerous position. So to your point, you're exactly right. My advice would be do what's best for you. And that's not always what the business that you work for is going to tell you. And it's not always what your boss is going to tell you, because they're going to do what's right for them.
But I would say if you're a person who's trying to do the right thing and loyal and pleasing and been in this business for this many years, it probably was something ultimately positive to have happened to you, because you're in a 100%. New life now. You're engaged. It's a second chapter. You have your kids. It's different at our age. You wonder what the purpose of everything is. What is my purpose? What am I doing? Like, it just comes up at this age. It's weird. Like, what does this all mean? You experience, like, this is the age for that. It's like a weird midlife crisis adjacent. So you needed something to fucking shake up the snow globe, I think.
Oh my God, I use that same analogy all the time. And it needed, there needed to be some sort of catastrophic event to rip that Band-Aid off, or else I was just going to, I was on the Titanic and I was just going to, I was the guy playing the violin on the Titanic, and I was just going to go down and the water's coming up above me. Right. And I'm like, how lovely is this?
Yes, nothing's happened. Something has to happen to you.
Something has to happen to rip that apart. And it did. And it was it's terrible to say this, because I went through it and it was horrific, but it was a beautiful event in my life that I will actually be grateful for when it's all said and done. It's probably the reason why I'm getting married. It's probably the reason why my relationship with my kids is 10 times better than it ever was. Wow. My relationship with my friends, I am at peace. I'm at ease. I'm a better person. And that's not to take a dig at all on the show that I worked for 20 years. Again, I will be the first to say I am grateful. It changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, that specific moment, that total shift in my life was beautiful. And I will always be grateful for that too.
No, that was the iceberg, to use your analogy. That was the iceberg, and you had to either sink or swim. And I think, something has to happen for something to happen a lot in our lives, at the stage of our lives that we're in. You get to the stage and you're like, what something's got to go down. Like, what are we going to do?
I always try to challenge myself. And I think you're the same way, because I've seen so many of your businesses and how successful you are. And I always would why did you write a book? It's like, well, I wrote a book because I'd never written one.
Right.
And I wanted to be scared. And why did you do a podcast? I don't know. I'd never tried it before. And so I tried. That's what sports always was for me. And maybe horse racing tiny bit was for you, is being scared. That I love the fear of failure. I love the ability to fail. Even when I was going through what I went through, I never worried about myself. I knew I was going to be fine, because I'm always going to be fine. I will make something happen in my life. I don't care if I'm waiting tables or I'm a bartender or I'm a real estate agent. I'm going to go do something. And I'm like you, I will be the best at it, or I will try to be the best at it. So I was never scared about me. It's just that drive and that ability to fail, to me, is exciting.
Yeah, I agree. You're on the edge.
If you loved this episode with Chris Harrison, don't worry, there's more. Head over to his podcast, The Most Dramatic Podcast Ever, to check out the rest of our conversation. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts.